Hi class, this is the review video for Unit 1-2 and the test that you will have in just a couple days. So first thing I want to point out is if you go to my YouTube channel, you will find that last year I also posted a video for this test. Now I've added a little bit of material this year that I didn't have last year on the Inquisition specifically, and also on Leo and Gregory. And also baptism and reconciliation. So you'll find some of those things are not in these videos, but you can go back to last year, and it's actually this is the first review video I ever put on my YouTube channel. You can see there's two parts, and this is actually with the class, and I go through and review it. And I think it might be useful for you, especially the long essay. I spend a while going through the long essay, starting at about 3 minutes. So anyway, that would, and the long essay is phrased just a little bit differently, but it's pretty much the same question. So I would ask you to you might find it useful to look back through those videos as well. And maybe you might have this weird video up here too. I don't know what that's about. YouTube is so weird sometimes. Anyway, also if you're missing anything at all from this unit for your notebook, or you need to study, please just go to my headline page, click on Notes and Assignments, and you can find everything that you could ever want. All the notes right here, all the homeworks, all the warm-ups, everything. It's all there for you. So knock yourself out with that. All right, well, let's get to it. Starting off, the Byzantine Empire refers to the eastern part of the Roman Empire that never fell. The western part of the Roman Empire fell. The eastern part did not. Their capital was in Constantinople, and that they go on to be called the Byzantine Empire, and they go on for another 1,000 years after Rome and the rest of the Western Empire fell. Latridulia, hyperdulia are three terms that they define at the Second Council of Nicaea, which will, this actually has somewhat to do with number 11. The Second Council of Nicaea had to do with iconoclasm and the idea of icons and religious images, whether those were considered idolatry, which the iconoclasts thought they were. The iconoclasts means image smashers, and the iconophiles, which means image lovers, did not think it was idolatry. The iconophiles actually won the argument in this debate, and they defined there's a difference between worshiping, which would make something idolatry, and venerating something, which would not make it idolatry. So latria is the word for worship, and it is only for God. Dulia is a word for respect or veneration, which we can have for the saints or holy objects or relics. And hyperdulia is a type of special veneration that we have for Mary. You can read about this in number 2, notes number 2. In the other two councils as well. Leo the Great was a very great pope. He and Gregory the Great, you can read all about them. And number 4, Leo the Great was especially known for stepping in to kind of take control of the political situation after Rome fell. So he was one of the first popes that was also a big political leader. And so that's what he was known for. And he kind of filled the gap that was left by when the emperor was no more. Gregory the Great, much like Leo, added a lot of structure to the church, and well, especially he was very much reformed the liturgy, and Gregorian chant, which is a traditional type of music in the church, is named after him. He himself was a musician. Both of these guys also were big on a better formation of priests, so that priests were better trained. The pornocracy was a period in the 10th century, the 900s, of about 80 years where we had really terrible popes, and you can read about them in one of your warm-ups on the pornocracy. Nestorianism was a heresy condemned at the Council of Ephesus, which said that Jesus' human and divine nature were totally separate, like he had a split personality, and that was condemned at the Council of Ephesus. Charlemagne was a Frankish king who was named as the Holy Roman Emperor. He was crowned by the Pope as the Holy Roman Emperor, which was kind of a slap in the face to the Byzantines, who thought they were still the Roman Empire. But the Pope in the Western Empire needed protection from the other barbarians, and so Charlemagne, since he was the head of the Franks, and they were like the most powerful barbarian group, they made a deal with the Pope. Hey, you call me the emperor, and I'll protect you. So that's what they did. Charlemagne's kingdom will eventually become France, a couple hundred years after that. That happens in the year 800. And monophysitism was a heresy condemned at the Council of Chalcedon, and it means one nature. And the idea was, this is kind of the opposite of Nestorianism. Nestorianism thought that Jesus' two natures were totally separate. Monophysitism thinks that they're totally combined, so that the godly nature like overwhelms and kind of overcomes the human nature. So they don't really take Jesus' human nature seriously. It's almost kind of like this super magic Jesus that never really had to live as a human, because his human nature and his divine nature were so, together. Anyway, Chalcedon will define it as Jesus has two natures, but he's still one person. Clovis was the first barbarian, warlord / king to become Christian. That was a big deal. He was Frankish. He was an ancestor of Charlemagne, as well as Pepin, who we'll talk about in a second. Muhammad was the founder of the Muslim movement and then the Islamic religion. He grew up around Jews and Christians and was fascinated by them, but couldn't understand why they didn't always practice what they preach. Had a vision in which he says he saw the angel Gabriel, who taught him all sorts of things, and that's why he started Islam. The Crusades were a series of wars between Christians and Muslims. Christians were trying to retake lands in the Holy Land, Jerusalem, etc., and also defend Constantinople. Jihad is a word within Islam that it means struggle, and it really is supposed to mean, at least first of all, interior struggle against evil and temptation, but can also be an exterior struggle like war against Islam's enemies, although it's always supposed to be defensive. It's been a term that's been largely misused by some radical groups in recent years. Feudalism was an economic and also cultural and political system of lords and vassals, where there was somebody above you and somebody below you, there we go. No, that's not where it is. I think this is in number 1. Yeah, feudalism. So there's somebody above you and somebody below you, and the person above you is your vassal, and or is your lord, and they protect you, and then the person below you is your vassal. Although most people didn't have anybody below them, they were just themselves vassals, and so they served the person above them. Innocent III was the most powerful medieval pope, maybe the most powerful pope ever. He was kind of like a monarch of all of Christendom, of like all of Christian Europe. He was pretty much the king. He was super, super powerful, and he promoted, definitely took care of the poor across Europe, promoted the Mendicant orders, and was very influential in trying to establish a peaceful Europe that would take care of the poor. Monasticism is the movement of religious orders that would live in monasteries, and they would work and study and pray together, and they become the safe houses of culture and education during the Dark Ages. It's basically the only place that education is going on, and they're able to preserve a lot of the learning from the Greco-Roman period in the monasteries. They also serve a critical role in evangelizing, spreading the gospel to the barbarians. Gregory VII, also a very powerful medieval pope. He's the guy you can thank for priests not being able to get married. Also Jesus, because Jesus wasn't married and is following his example. But Gregory VII is the one that made it a mandatory thing for all priests. It was, lots of priests did it before that, but he's the one that made it happen. Also, he's a great example of a pope that was more powerful than the emperor at the time, and really stuck it to the Holy Roman Emperor by excommunicating him and making him come grovel in the snow to get unexcommunicated. The Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor imperial, but it was kind of a confederation or a league of little kingdoms that would all voted on an emperor who wasn't really an emperor, but he was kind of the chief of the lords among those kingdoms. It was a big deal to be Holy Roman Emperor, but it definitely wasn't like a unified country. In fact, sometimes they fought with each other. The Great Eastern Schism is the split between the Catholic and Orthodox Church in 1054. The Greek-speaking Byzantines in the east and the Latin-speaking Catholic Christians in the west. And that's their final split, although tension had been building for a long time. The Papal States are the is the land that the Pope is the king of. It's the kingdom of the Pope, and it's given to him by a Frankish king named Pepin, who again is an ancestor of Charlemagne. Great Western Schism is a split within the Western Church. At a certain point, there's actually as many as 3 popes. We'll talk about the Avignon papacy, where Avignon was a little tiny papal state. Where is it? It's number 5. Avignon was a little tiny papal state in France, and I know it's in here somewhere. There we go. There's Avignon, right there. And the French king, who was super powerful, convinced the Pope to come and stay there, and we had 7 popes in a row that are basically under the thumb of the French king. And when the Catherine of Siena finally convinces the Pope to come back, the French bishops don't like this, and so they elect a new pope, but the other pope doesn't step down, and so we have 2 popes, and Europe gets split with shifting allegiances all over the place. And then a lot of the bishops get fed up and elect a new pope, but neither of the other 2 step down. So they have to have a council called the Council of Constance, which we'll study next unit, to sort it all out. What else? Where are we? All right. So that's called the Great Western Schism when we have 2 or 3 popes. Fortunately, that one ended, unlike the Great Eastern Schism, which is still going on. Although that could end within our lifetime, which would be super cool. Theotokos is the term for God-bearer, or mother of God, that is given to Mary at the Council of Ephesus when they're talking about Nestorianism and whether Jesus is one, he's like one nature or 2 natures. So whether we can say Mary is mother of God or mother of Christ, and they decide, well, Jesus is really one person. So yes, she is mother of God because she is mother of Christ as well. So that's why Nestorianism is condemned, because they were saying that it was like 2 separate natures, that she could somehow be Christ's mother without being God's mother. The Catholic Church is the name given to the Western Christian Church after the Great Eastern Schism, and the Orthodox Church is the name given to the Eastern Church after the Great Eastern Schism. So it used to just be the Christian Church, and now we have the Catholic and the Orthodox Church. Iconoclasm, we talked about that with the Second Council of Nicaea, means image smashing, because they thought religious images were idolatry. Christendom is the term used for all the Christian lands of Europe. The mendicant orders are begging orders, as opposed to monastic orders who live in monasteries. The mendicant orders are more active, and they go out and serve the poor. The most famous are the Franciscans and the Dominicans. The lay investiture controversy has to do with lay people, meaning non-clergy, non-priests, bishops, popes, etc., investing popes. So it would be like a king, popes or bishops. So it'd be like a king appointing basically a bishop or a pope. And there was a big argument for a long, long time, big controversy between, does the king or the Lord or the emperor or whoever get to appoint the bishop, or does the Pope get to do that? That gets solved by Gregory VII when he makes the Holy Roman Emperor grovel in the snow by excommunicating him. From then on, at least officially, the Pope gets to nominate and appoint bishops. Avignon papacy we talked about, and we're moving on. Monasteries were super important during the Dark Ages because they protected all the knowledge, as I said. Major contributing factor to the decline of the Western Roman Empire. You can find that on the very first page of number 1, where it talks about why the Roman Empire fell, all these reasons. Number 3. Factors that contributed to the eventual split between the Catholic and Orthodox Church. It was a big cultural divide between the Byzantines and the Western Christians. They spoke Greek in the East, and they were very well educated and had a long tradition of Roman law and Roman philosophy, whereas in the West, they were more peasants. They spoke Latin or other languages. They were much less unified. They were much less intellectual, not really much sense of law and order and philosophy. And then both at the Council of Chalcedon and Nicaea, the Byzantines kind of get pooped on a little bit, and they get angry. Both the Nestorians and the Monophysites, both the Monophysites and the Iconoclasts are more Eastern people. And then when the Pope names Charlemagne as Holy Roman Emperor, the Byzantines are like, we thought we were the Romans. So what the crap, man? So that really upset them as well. And then the filioque clause in the understanding of the Holy Spirit is kind of what breaks the camel's back and causes the excommunication between the Pope and the Bishop of Constantinople. That's part one. We'll be back for part two.